CLT Talk Radio and the unions.
Today's concerns, tomorrow's headlines. At Issue with Jeanine Graf.
The CLT petition has created some strange bedfellows and some passionate enemies. One of the greatest separations seems to exist in the unions these days, and talk radio really reflects it all, and it's fraught with the emotional exchanges. Barbara Anderson joins us, who also happens to be one of the governors on WRKO. She is the executive director of Citizens for Limited Taxation, while Peter Mead, talk host for WBZ Radio, is unabashed about his opposition to the CLT petition, or Question 3 that appears on the ballot in November. I guess we start at the very beginning, and Governor. What do you think? I guess that's what we should say. The Governor's show, before we actually launch into what is Question 3, let's do a little talk radio kind of content here first. As the recipient of some of the emotional exchange as one of the governors on WRKO with Jerry Williams and Howie Carr, what is the response that you get? Do you find that that has raised this issue to the fore so much more because of the high profile that you personally are getting?
It has changed the entire dynamic of a ballot question, where normally you have to go out and first explain why you're doing what you're doing. Because of talk radio, everybody knows why we're doing what we're doing. They know what's happened in the state. They know why it happened and who did it to them. All we have to do now, between now and November 6th, is explain why we think Question 3 is the solution to that.
Okay, so you're saying they know why, who did it to them?
They are, because of talk radio, everywhere I go, people are talking about talk radio. I mean, they talk specifically, obviously, about the show that I'm on. They talk about talk radio in general, and they know everything. They know what 03 consultants are, they know what 07 consultants are, they know what the budget is, they know what the deficit's been, they know who lied about revenue numbers and who is trying to tell the truth. They know everything that's going on in this state. I have never seen such a level of awareness.
Is it awareness, or it is also, is it something that once... This is going to be tricky, because is it a level of awareness that's caused the cynicism, or is it the cynicism that's led to a deeper thirst for, or an intellectual curiosity about things fiscal?
The more you know about the way government has been operating, allegedly operating over the last 7 years, the more cynical you are. And unless you're going to argue that not knowing, that you're happy or not knowing, then of course what we have right now is ideal for us.
So you don't think you're feeding the cynicism that has the consumer confidence index sort of
in the sense
crashing?
That when you tell people what's happening and give them a dose of reality and tell them the truth about the situation, they know more than they did. They are likely to be more cynical. But in this particular case, cynicism is appropriate as long as it doesn't become so cynical that it leads to apathy, and that's not what's happening here. You see people angry, cynical, and ready to act and change things.
Anything but. Do you agree with that? I mean, first of all, what do you think, Peter, of the Governor's show? Have you listened to it?
You know, when I said to somebody when they asked me about it, do you listen? It's not a good time for me to listen, because that's just before.
Have you ever heard it?
Oh, I've heard a little bit of it.
What do you think of it?
I'm not going to comment on what somebody on another. I mean, I don't know if you talk about what they're doing over at Channel 4. I don't want to do that.
So you're not going to make a comment on whether you think the cynicism aspect,
No, I
or
wanted
what?
to talk about that. There is an incredible bit of cynicism in this country. If you look at what happened at Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago, where they voted to limit the terms. I was talking to Frosty Troy, one of the leaders in the movement to do that. He was talking about the anger that people have and the involvement. In California, they're trying to limit terms right now. I think you see across the board in the electoral process a whole business of people saying, hey, wait a minute, government's not doing what I want it to do, and we need to make some changes. Now, where Barbara and I disagree, I think, is about what those changes are. For example, I think we ought to limit terms. She doesn't want to. I think Question 3 is a bad idea. But the level of involvement in government and politics has increased across the board in this country. Massachusetts, I mean, I'm fond of saying 3 things motivate us here: politics, sports, and revenge. I think we've always been more involved in government and politics, but I think that's heightened by where we are economically in this state, how mad people are at the governor, a sense that we really do need change. And if you look at the change about to happen, I mean, even before any of us vote in November.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and I think people like me who have been concerned, I mean, first off, before being in radio, I worked in 3 Fortune 500 companies. I think I know what it's like to work in a business. One of them a Fortune 100 company where I did planning for. And I think I understand how you attract businesses. I've been involved in efforts to bring social services to people. And I think Michael Dukakis has been a disaster for this state. I think there's general agreement on that.
Okay, so you two agree on that, but what I want to get some sort of agreement on is why then, when we have talk radio from 2 different sides of the fence, do you find that most of your listeners disagree with you or agree with you? Do they mostly want to bash you because you're opposing Barbara Anderson, one of the governors over here?
I don't think they want to bash me.
Do you get a lot of it?
No, I'm just a kind, gentle kid out of Dorchester, and why would
See, I
anybody...
knew he was going to play the sweet baby cheeks here.
There are people who are real mad. Some people are mad at me. One of the things about talk radio is you're not a potted palm. I mean, you're supposed to take positions.
Do you think there's good and bad talk radio, though, and do you think that this may be a bad element that leads to cynicism?
Well, I don't
the
understand
governor's
the question.
type programming?
Oh, I think the more involvement you have, the more people talking about issues, the more people who question government, the more people criticize people who work for us. I don't know how that can be bad. That's what this country's been founded on. That's a wonder of this nation, and that ought to be encouraged.
That's what he says on the radio, and here, of course, when he's talking to the Mass Teachers Association, he's quoted in the paper as referring to greedy, money-grubbing people, the likes of Barbara Anderson, who don't care about the poor and needy. So it's a different message.
But I
no,
would
what
not
did you
be able
call
to
her?
say.
Do we have a direct quote
First
here?
off, I don't know that that's in disagreement at all on what I said. The other, what I did
but
say.
Is Barbara here a mean, greedy, money-grubbing?
What I said was the phrase.
No, that's not what I said. Short-sighted, selfish, and mean-spirited was what I said.
Oh,
and I believe that. And I think it's healthy for me to say that as Barbara criticizes me and I criticize Barbara.
Have I called you a nasty adjective,
for example,
Peter? I don't
just
recall
yesterday,
doing
the Chamber of Commerce in the South Shore changed their mind on question 3. They're one of the architects
they haven't
with
been
Barbara.
with us over a year.
And Barbara yesterday was, and the people in CLT were saying, oh gosh, you know, they put pressure on them and all that stuff. That's healthy to raise questions about people. And I do think the High Tech Council has been incredibly selfish and short-sighted. And I really believe that's true.
These executives earning, 6 figures, that they really care about getting their income tax reduced. That's not what they're all about.
We're in agreement. We're in agreement.
They're going to deal with
that note of
in order to
agreement,
get their income tax
they
reduced.
are selfish. We agree about
I can
that.
see with talk radio we're going to have a free-for-all here. Let's hold it right there and we'll continue in a minute. At issue, the CLT petition, talk radio, and then the unions. We have Barbara Anderson and Peter Mead joining us. Barbara's one of the governors on RKO, and Peter, of course, WBZ Radio. When we're looking at all of this, why do you personally oppose? What about question number 3 bothers you?
Well, I think we need to change the way government works, and I think we need to make some fundamental changes in government. The problem, one of the many problems with question 3 is in the middle of a budget year, in the middle of the year, we're forced to make these enormous changes and to take money out in the middle of a budget year. If you wanted to say, we need to cap spending, and we need to cap it in a year from now, and this is what it needs to be, then I think you'd have a lot more support.
Then you'd favor
the problem you can't do, the reason you can't do that is with government. If they have to deal with something on January 1st, they will start to deal with it on January 1st. If you delay it until July 1st, they will start to think about dealing with it on June 30th, giving them a window of opportunity to try to change people's minds and going out and cutting the Chelsea Soldiers Home and services for the mentally retarded while they play that game. And our concern about delaying, while we're certainly open to suggestion on it, is that we don't want them to have that window of opportunity to try to prove the voters wrong after they vote yes on question 3.
Okay, now this is, question 3 is a tax rollback, is what it is. We are rolling back the taxes.
Not really. We're going to repeal the taxes that went in this year, the income tax, the sales tax, the gas tax. We're going to roll back the money from that temporary income tax, and we're going to roll back fees to where they were in '88, subject to a vote of both the House and Senate to restore some of the fees, if that's what they want to do in the open. So it's only a rollback of just that one small element, the rollback of the temporary income tax, and we're willing to talk about delaying that. But if it's hurting the economy to have more than a 5% income tax and hurting the economy on this expanded sales tax, then we better get rid of it quickly because our economy can't stand too much more of it.
All right, now,
complete my thought.
All right.
The reason that's a problem, no business would say in the middle of a year, in the middle of a fiscal year, you're going to change the rules and tear out 30% that's left in the budget. And that's what we're essentially saying to state government. There's no time to plan. We're going to have a new governor, a new lieutenant governor, a new attorney general, a new treasurer. 34 new state reps. That's before we get to vote in November. A fifth of the Senate's going to be new. These people are going to come into office and we're going to tear the budget apart and say, you can't do it, you have to be cutting all this money out. Now, you can't cut it out of bonded indebtedness. You can't cut it out of pensions. So what you have to do is...
So what your argument is where the cut's going to fall?
Clearly we know where the cuts are going to fall because of where they have fallen in the past. And in the middle of a fiscal year, it's a real problem. And what people like the South Shore Chamber of Commerce, a group that Barbara said is a group that fights for what they believe in, people who reversed themselves on the CLT petition said that, now they're not a group that fights. Well, only when they're with Barbara are they a group that fights for what they believe in. What they said is the economy is so bad that we can't afford to do this, that this is the wrong time to do this.
We can't afford not to do this. And you talk about bonded indebtedness. That's prior debt. You know they're still going to bond for the museum in North Adams? That's future debt. We're going to stop that, and we're going to stop that now. And if we don't do it now, then they're going to continue to delay. We'll have another deficit this year. We'll have another bond to pay off the deficit. We'll have another tax increase. And which tax will we raise next year,
Now, these are the frivolous
Who are
things.
we going to hit next year?
These are the frivolous things. Many of the people are always thinking there's something to cut that's fat. And I think if we look back into the years of Prop 2.5, many people were saying the same things about Prop 2.5. Did you oppose 2.5, Peter?
No, I didn't. And if you look at what happens here, people like Associated Industries in Massachusetts, the South Shore Chamber of Commerce, people who have been opposed to the tax increases of the last several years, those people are opposed to Question 3 because they know it will be a disaster for business.
So they were opposed to the tax increases on their way up.
Or you're not.
But once they were, now they were opposing them on the way up and the installation of those taxes.
And they're saying we can't do it now.
Now they're saying we can't take them away.
The Question 3 is a problem, that it's a mistake, that it will be a disaster for us economically.
So in other words, are you saying that they opposed those taxes being implemented and then they discovered that they were otherwise a good thing?
No, I'm saying what they said. And what they said was, these are people who fought the tax increases and said we shouldn't be doing them. Now what they're saying is Question 3 is a disaster for us economically, that it will hurt us. There'll be people in construction who are out of business, that it will be a serious problem for the economy of Massachusetts.
Everybody agrees that there's a problem. We're going to do something about it. Dominic Bizzotto is going to do something about it, and the High Tech Council is going to do something about it, and the rest of the business community is going to stand on the sidelines and hope that somebody someday does something about it.
Okay,
what is your solution to all of this, if not Question 3?
I think what we need to do is limit terms. I want to limit terms in the House and Senate to 6 years.
I
was asked the question. Can I answer the question?
You can't do it this year.
Could I answer the question? I'd like to do it in the next 30 seconds. I want to limit terms. 2 terms for a governor, 6 years for a state rep. I want to prohibit people from passing tax packages beyond 8 o'clock at night. You also shouldn't be able to pass a tax package unless it's been in print for 5 days. We need to change the rules at the State House. I'm also for putting in economic free zones so that we attract business. I think all of that needs to be done.
And we'll do it if we have to, and if Question 3 passes, they'll have to do some of these things.
They certainly will, and I guess that's where we'll hold it. And just ahead, our discussion will continue, but we'll take a look at the debate in the unions. When one union leader decided to back the CLT petition, war broke out. In fact, Dominic Bizzotto, the president of the Boston Hotel Workers Union, was shunned by colleagues and friends of more than 20 years. Why? Well, Joseph Delory can probably tell us. He is the secretary-treasurer of the National Association of Government Employees and, of course, thinks the CLT question number 3 is an absurd idea. So we will begin with Dominic. Why in the world did you take a step so outside of what the other unions are the other members of the union are doing?
Well, I don't think taking a step for good government is outside what unionism is about. I don't think taking a step for responsible government is outside what unions are about. I think that a yes vote on Question 3 is exactly what the membership want. They want good government, they want responsible government, and they want to know what's going on.
But you're talking about the membership here rather casually. I mean, the membership seems to be a vast majority that will be voting against you and
oh
your
no,
views.
we took a we do everything democratically. The nice thing about our union is democratic. Our executive board took this stand unanimously, and we brought it to the membership, and at our membership meeting the votes were 6-1 in favor of our position. So clearly our membership understands that good government is important, that you can't just raise taxes without dedicating that tax money to get something accomplished.
Personally taking that stand, what have you lost? What is the nastiest thing that's happened to you over the past month or so?
In the 10 years I've been president of Local 26, Local 26 has done so many things that are outrageous. That
yes, you certainly have. There are sit-ins that we can mark.
Exactly right. So this is just one. This is just one more thing.
Around the question, Dominic. Back to what the question is. The question was, once again, I'll reiterate, what has happened to you?
Well, some very close friends of mine have decided that Question 3 is so sacrosanct, and it is so important that there's only one answer. And because I don't have that answer, they've decided not to talk to me. They've decided to
so you are shunned.
turn their back. Well, I mean, there's some people who could shun me, and I wouldn't know it because I haven't talked to them in years. Like Arthur Osmond, I haven't talked in years, so I don't. He's been shunned for a long time. But there are other people.
You mean you've been
close.
shunned all these years by Arthur Osmond?
Well, one of us has shunned the other. But there's been some close friends who have made the decision that freedom of speech is out the window. And that's bothered me because their principles are better than that.
But solidarity, isn't solidarity what the unions are about, and you're all supposed to stand shoulder to shoulder? Would that be your argument, Joe?
As far as I'm concerned, that is the argument. That's the function of the union movement. Our organization, neither our organization nor myself individually has engaged in any shunning of any individual. We've watched Dominic's work through the years and the guerrilla tactics that he's used to the great benefit of his members, and have applauded him and continue to applaud him on a number of things. No one bats 1,000, Dominic. You're wrong on this one. You've been right on a lot.
Where is he wrong?
Oh, he's wrong because
Is he wrong, number one, because he's breaking a sort of unspoken brotherhood code?
No, he's wrong because he says question 3 will be good for the state and good for his members, and we're convinced that it won't be.
Well, that's because you obviously represent a union that represents state workers, right?
Correct, and also citizens of the Commonwealth. You know, people tend to forget sometimes that when I say I represent public employees, that when these public employees leave the police station or the city hall or the state hospital, they go home to a house that's next door to you. They're your neighbors, they're your relatives, they're your friends, they're taxpayers. They're people who depend upon services as well as provide services. So both in their role as employees, Dominic, and in their roles as citizens, the imposition of the effects of question 3 would have what we think is a tragic effect upon them.
Throat.
Well,
exactly.
Let me ask you a question. If you're correct and question 3 loses, then you're going to get the retroactive tax increase of this year and the 2 automatic tax increases that come into effect in January. Tell me, what are the no people going to do with that tax money? What programs are you going to refund?
Well, I'd like to see an increase in the funding of things like affordable housing, for example, which you
must have
committed yourself to.
Tell me what the agenda is. What are the 10 or 15 or 20 programs that are very, very important and that you can guarantee this audience that money will refund?
Oh, I can't guarantee anything because I'm not running for chief executive officer.
Because it's business as usual.
No, Dominic.
It's business as usual. You want the automatic tax increases, but you're not going to tell us where you're going to dedicate the money. If you remember, before we got into this fight, we had a group called TEAM. And TEAM guaranteed Local 26, as well as NAGE and all the other unions, that they were going to put a question on the ballot that dedicated tax money so that our agendas would be met. And after they got enough signatures, what did they tell us? We're not going to put it on the ballot. They bellied up to the fight. And now what they're saying is, no, just give us more taxes and let's trust the politicians. Well, we've got to take it away from the politicians.
So
we've
your
got to
vote
force the politicians.
is taking it away from the politicians, and you see that...
No, we've got to force them to be accountable. And if we give them the money, you know what they'll say to us? Well, when the crisis reappears, then we'll think about it.
So you want tighter reins on government.
Well,
that's what you're looking for, tighter controls.
We're going to let them start with $12 billion, because that's what the rollback will give them. $12 billion, that's what we're going to let them start with. Seems to me that's a lot of money.
Okay, we're going to hold it right there, and both sides will continue just ahead. At issue, the divisions in the union over the CLT petition. My guests, Dominic Bizzotto and Joseph Delory. And Joe, you are the head of NAGE, and you know, sometimes when we've been chatting, you've said that's a relatively conservative union.
Yeah, well, I'm an elected official of NAGE. I'm not the national president of NAGE. Yes, we are. Our members...
That's the National Association of Government Employees.
And the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, which represents 165 police departments here in the Commonwealth. And our people perform the day-to-day work of government. And our people have a unique position from which to view the horrendous abuses which have gone on in the government, particularly during the last 8 years.
So that's where you'd say your relatively conservative stance comes from?
Yeah, sure. The answers that have been promulgated by this administration to try to cure and solve the society's problems have been done by just throwing money at the problem, particularly through an expansion of a consultant force that I think we would find is a very, very pronounced reason for the radical expenditures that have taken place. And they are ill-advised. We're for a merit system in government. We're for government employees doing government work. And we're for...
And are you for more government jobs so that there will be more government employees doing government work? Isn't that a liberal concept of government?
No, but a parallel occurrence has to take place, and that's the diminution of the consultant staff or hired staff, in effect, the body brokers with whom the Commonwealth contracts.
So in other words, what's happening is that the expansion of government, obviously more of a liberal trend, is something that you would, as a union, fight for the expansion of government, because it's going to mean more government jobs and at least a job security.
Well, it'll also mean more services. Don't forget, among our members are the police officers, the people who you have to call for response.
That's true.
People
well, those
will
are the services.
People will call now and say, gee, it took 35 minutes for the police to respond. And I suggest that if question 3 passes, you can throw your watch away and take out a calendar and say, I called on Monday and they're here on Wednesday. Dominic,
if you don't... this great speech on how much patronage there is in the system. You want to get rid of the patronage, then you put in someone different who will get rid of the patronage.
Correct.
And you take away the money that is the trough that patronage lives at.
Incorrect.
And that's what question 3 does.
No,
it says to those politicians, the new politicians who are going to get elected, we don't want it like it used to be, where you put everybody on the payroll and you don't care about the services.
What convinced you of this point of view? I mean, when we look at the trough, you would think that the trough, especially when you're dealing with unions, that feeding trough would be fed with certain government employees being in charge. I mean, you have endorsed Jesse Jackson and now William Weld.
Hourly employees who work, they're not at the trough at all. They work hard for every dollar they get, and that goes for state employees and cities employees.
Okay, so you're saying that that's true all across the board.
The patronage system that he's talked about, and he's correct, that's been built for the last 15 or 20 years, is outrageous. Even his candidate, John Silber, says there is so much waste in the schools that we can get rid of that waste and put in a new program that he has.
Well,
so clearly there is still waste there.
But that's not a Silber endorsement, is it?
No, he says it's a Silber endorsement. No, Silber wants to raise the gasoline tax another 12 cents. What William Weld will do, if he does nothing else, by being a Republican coming into a Democratic state, is end the patronage, because in order to put in Republicans, he has to get rid of all those patronage jobs that the Democrats have now filled.
But all those patronage jobs happen to fall right into the employee ranks.
No, the people he represents are the hardworking state employees who get out an hourly rate or again get a salary, but they provide the services.
But those hardworking employees, Dominic, are looking at you as a traitor, aren't they?
Well, listen, in a democracy, we have a difference of opinion. I don't believe the rank and file does that at all. The calls have been 10 to 1 into our union by rank and file people from around the state who have said to us,
what do you think of that?
The union is correct.
What do you think of that?
I think it is an exaggeration.
Have you done any sort of polling yourself to find out what the rank and file really thinks?
Yes, we have. And
I mean, they're taxpayers, too, as you've said.
Yeah, but our members realize that they are dependent upon services. They realize the value of their own work. And as I said earlier, they realize the abuses that are taking place.
Well, how do you get rid of those
Dominic,
abuses,
give me
Joe?
a minute, please.
Well, plenty of minutes.
My suggestion is that question 3 is not the proper response. That the proper response is a chief executive officer who will come in and not exercise the abuse which has been the hallmark of the past administration. And there are places to cut within mid-management and within the contracted for work which could result in remarkable savings that the people are crying out for.
Then why don't they cut that now, Joe, instead of cut the soldiers' home in Chelsea? It's because it's mental terrorism, and what you're saying to us is be so scared that you're willing to accept business as usual.
All right, gentlemen, we have to conclude here. We have just about 15 seconds for each of you, which may be an impossibility. In closing, question 3?
Well, I think if people want to show responsibility, they should vote yes on question 3. What it says to the state legislature is we're going to give you $12 billion to start with, and then we are going to create a system through that.
Okay.
And if we're going to fund programs, the money should be dedicated.
Thank you.
I don't think $12 billion in assets will answer $13 billion worth of bills if you have to cut those checks on January 1st. And that the true answer comes in a chief executive officer who will make meaningful cuts in a sensible way rather than this radical hammer.
Radical hammer, and there we have it, both sides of question number 3, and everyone's going to have to decide for themselves. Special thanks to my guests for joining us this evening.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us, too, for this edition of At Issue. I'm Jeanine Graf. Good night.